Two Virginians and an immigrant walk into a room diametrically opposed to foes. They emerge having reached a compromise, opened doors that were previously closed, bros. I say these lyrics not just to impress you with my memorization of rap, but to give you a glimpse into the depth of what is considered one of the greatest songs in a very popular musical that uses its genre to provide a new take on a very familiar story. The Room Where It Happens is the show-stopping song from 11-time Tony winner Hamilton. It is the story about Aaron Burr's declaration of the need to climb the political ladder after being bested by Alexander Hamilton time and time again. He declares how he wants to be in the room and have a say in how his country is run, as he is a part of it too. This is a fresh take on the compromise of 1790 that uses rap to reach new audiences, reflect problems citizens still have with the government, as being used in remarkable ways for education. To understand the song completely, it is necessary to know the story that inspired it, the dinner between Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. And this is the dinner that decided the fate of our nation. The song focuses on the Compromise of 1790, a major event that Jacob E. Cook called one of the most important bargains in American history. It comes from a controversial decision by Alexander Hamilton to have the federal government assume state debts. This plan was not being approved by Congress, and he could not get it through. It is because of the opposition from Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, two Virginians whose state did not have as much debt due to using slaves, and did not want to take on the debt. Hamilton knew he had to convince them, so he went to Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the only one to write on it, and he says in a letter that, going to the president one day, I met Hamilton. His look was somber, haggard, and dejected. He asked to speak with me. Jefferson brought Madison and Hamilton together for dinner, and they all discussed a compromise. Hamilton was to situate the nation's capital on the Potomac. Meanwhile, Madison would persuade two other Virginians to change their vote. This deal led to Hamilton's decision passing and shaped how our country developed. This is just one of the many stories that shaped our nation, and yet it's not very well known to the mass public. It's not because it's not available. There are rows and rows of books in libraries telling the nonfiction historical story of our founding fathers. What makes The Room Where It Happens different is that through music and rap, it reaches to a whole new demographic of people who would not know much about Burr or Jefferson, let alone the Compromise of 1790. Rap is nothing new to the musical world, as there have been shows that utilize rap before, such as Rent or The Music Man. What makes it different is that Lin-Manuel Miranda, the writer, composer, star of Hamilton, recognizes the power in rap and has a respect for it. As Susie Evans wrote, Lin-Manuel isn't using rap as a gimmick. Rather, he's crafted it, and he's crafted the form specifically for the stage and for his story. The style is amazing on its own, and many rappers today, such as Busta Rhymes, Chance the Rapper, and Questlove, have fallen in love with it. The number of people that want to learn about history is increased through the use of rap because of its place in modern culture. The singer of the song, Leslie Odom Jr., said in an interview with Wall Street Journal that hip-hop is where our modern-day civil rights leaders are. They can be candid in ways that sometimes politicians can't. The youth of today look up to these people and their style of music for messages of hope and of change. Rap artists are usually seen as the ones saying what everyone is thinking, putting words to the pain and struggle that people go through in their own communities. The fact that rap is used in this song also led to the diversity in the story and the representation of Black and Latino culture in American history. When casting for the show, Miranda said in a podcast when he was looking for actors that he was looking for people that could not just sing and dance, but nail that rap style that they were looking for. And that happened to be mostly Black and Hispanic actors. Most of the times, it is minorities who feel like decisions are being made about them and they have no say in the matter. Seeing people of their own race and gender being represented is another way of showing people in the audience that these stories, and this song specifically, reflect their feelings and is accessible to them. Another lyric that is very important to the music, to the song, is The art of the compromise. Hold your nose and close your eyes. We want our leaders to save the day, but we don't get a say in what they trade away. We dream of a brand new start, but we dream in the dark for the most part. These lyrics express one of the central themes of this song, in the frustration of the secrecy of how the government is run, the distrust of politicians controlling the common citizen's very life. This is not something that's changed over time. As a study of Pew Research Center found, just 19% of Americans say they can trust the federal government. This can be attributed to both the lack of diversity in the government, such as when a board of men decide on the health rights of women in the latest Affordable Health Care Act, or on the other side, when it was discovered through WikiLeaks that Bernie Sanders had been sabotaged by the Democratic National Convention and was not given a fair chance in the election as well. The song is making huge impacts in the educational world as well. Teachers all over America have been introducing students to the history of the Founding Fathers through the songs and others like it. KQED News wrote an article on Andrea Luverman, who uses snippets of songs to provoke interest in the Revolutionary War and has students actually put on skits as well from it. She shows students songs like The Room Where It Happens to tell these historical stories in a more personal way. It shows that these Founding Fathers aren't bloodless, two-dimensional cutouts who devoted their lives to abstract principles. Rather, they're all human and afflicted with personal vices along with their virtues. Throughout the musical and in the song, people struggle with the idea of legacy, whether they will be remembered after they die for all of the work they've done. Through The Room Where It Happens, their legacies were revitalized and brought to the attention of those who were not interested before or who had never heard of them. Online, you can even find fan art of this song, done by so many young people enamored with the style and the characters that have jumped off of the page. It is because of this form of language the song takes, musical hip-hop and rap, that it reaches new audiences and helps educate children on the stories of the Founding Fathers, showing them as real people who struggled, who wanted, and who made mistakes. The Room Where It Happens shows that though centuries may pass by, we share a lot in common with these great people as we struggle to be a part of our narrative as well. Whether it is the compromise of 1790 or the rights of our fellow humans that we fight for today, we all want to be in the room where it happens and make decisions for ourselves.
Have you been able to see Hamilton?
No, don't got that money right now.
I thought you were going. Aren't you going soon?
I'm going in May.
May, yeah.
I got those tickets at Christmas.
Ooh.
Alex, you made the assertion that Virginia had little debt due to having slaves. What's the source for that? Because maybe they went to a Dave Ramsey session and we're doing a good job with their budget.
It was one of the things that was mentioned in, I believe it was Jacob E. Cook. He wrote the nonfiction book on the Compromise of 1790 and spoke of the reasons of why. I didn't mention that quote, but they spoke of how, due to the use of slave labor, they didn't have as much debt because they didn't have to pay their workers like the other states had to.
Good. That would be an important source to give because that's an interesting understanding of what was going on at that time. Seriously, no question?
We already know a lot about Hamilton.
Okay, well,
Why did you choose to do The Room Where It Happens of all the songs you could have chosen?
I believe it is one of the most human of the songs and one that reflects sort of the political turmoil that is happening today in the kind of frustration with the government. And it's also one of the most popular ones of the song. It's considered like a show-stopping number because of both the actor Leslie Odom Jr. and just how well written and composed the song is. So I thought it was probably one of the best ones in the musical to talk about.
Alex, you find it ironic that you said it speaks to those who are minorities, and in this case, many who don't have much money, that it costs so much to go to see Hamilton, which is why you haven't gone yet?
Yeah, but Lin-Manuel Miranda, the writer and star of it, actually has made it very accessible to even people in New York or in Chicago by creating both scholarships and programs where children from urban schools can actually go to see it for much less money.
Alex, did you run across anything as you were working on this where anybody talks about how a musical like this not only helps get people into the situation, the ideas, the issues, but distorts them. That's always the danger of art taking some historical event.
Yeah.
Anything along those lines?
Yes, that was also in Jacob E. Cook's book, which was in my original paper, but I took out to save time. In the actual Compromise of 1790, there's actually a debate of whether this one dinner actually did affect the entire decision, because it was something that had been going through Congress and there had already been lots of discussions, and it's debatable whether 2 votes could have actually changed it, but it's part of the narrative story, and the musical itself chooses to focus on sort of the fantastic elements of it.
And wasn't it more than just the 2 votes? It was the influence that those 2 men had, right, that they would be able to sway
Right.
people to their side. I'm glad that you touched on what's happening across the country, because now there are even curriculums that are being published that teachers can use in their classrooms to get, students involved. And Lin-Manuel Miranda has said in many articles and other places, of course, to try to take all of this and put it into, and the musical is fairly long, it's a good 3 hours or more. You do have to leave some things out. So, like Professor Hargis said, obviously we're not covering everything, but he's trying to at least get the gist of it, for us to understand.
What class was this for?
Advanced essay writing. It was the final paper on a piece of art that affected the world.
Would Plato like it?
Hmm?
That was from.
But the cool thing is, I thought you might mention it, that, our government now was going to take Hamilton off the $10 bill.
Yes.
And then talk about art affecting the world. Then they decided against it because there was such an uproar of people now that understood what contribution he had made to our country that said, no, you can't take him off, and they changed their minds.
Professor Schmidt wants to give a speech on this. Thank you, Alex.